Hey guys, this installment is a little bit of an experiment more than anything else. I want to try to illustrate as best I can what I'm actually doing when I'm working on one of these TVs. In particular, this one that has circuit boards with capacitors that have two leads on one end that are going into the board and soldered on the other side. So I've replaced a number of them, like these down here, which restored vertical functionality. We have full height now. And I thought I'd do this guy next. So in the past I've done a handheld camera like I'm doing now, or I'll use a tripod, but my hands get in the way, my body gets in the way, cast a shadow, and you can't really tell what's going on. So what I thought I'd do is I dug out my older camera, my JVC a Vario, I think it is, and I thought I would use that in conjunction with my Canon to simultaneously film from a couple angles and then see if I can manage to edit it together in a coherent manner. So this is the cap. It's an Ajax. It's a 0.047 200 volt, and I've been replacing all these caps with these guys, which are modern polyester film caps, and works out pretty well. Generally the lead spacing is pretty darn close, just a little bit of bending here and there, and everything works out fine. So what I wanted to show you in particular though is how am I getting these out on the other side. I did not want to take these circuit boards out. They can come out if you take off all these little hex sheet metal screws, but then there's also a whole bunch of wiring. It doesn't look too bad from this side. But keep in mind, we've got a bunch of different circuit boards that have got to be connected together somehow with signals and voltages and whatnot. So that's all on the back side. I don't want to undo all these connections to get the circuit board out just to replace a couple capacitors. So I've been working on the back side. So first off, I got to figure out which one of these, or which two of these pads correspond to the cap on the other side. And then I want to show you how I unmount it without damaging the circuit board or lifting up any traces. So hang on while I grab my other camera and get things set up, and let's see if we can actually record this so you can see what's going on. So here is the old JVC Vario. Did a whole bunch of videos with this until a few years ago I switched to the Canon. I don't remember exactly what resolution this supports. I put it in the highest quality mode, and we'll see. I think it's widescreen. For sure the one I'm recording this is. So that's the one thing that I'm not sure about, is the raw video that comes out of these two cameras are in different formats. Can my video editor handle them together seamlessly, or am I going to have to convert them before combining? Time will tell. And now shooting a little bit of footage using the JVC Vario to show you the other camera, which is a Canon Vixia HFR50. This is what I've been using almost exclusively for the last 5 years or so. Real nice camera, got it refurbished directly from Canon's website. There's real nice high-def videos, very easy to use. Alright, so now time to try both simultaneously. Okay, both cameras are firing away. So here is the cap we're going to replace. And if I kind of eyeball, looking on both sides of the chassis, it is right about here. I'm thinking it's these two leads coming through. Now typically when they mount these, as you can see, pretty well illustrated, the lead right above it, they put these through the board, bend it over, and then solder it. So if you heat this up, try to pull it straight out, it's going to get hung up. So one thing you do is heat it and rock the component in the opposite way but you can damage the board in a trace. These are phenolic circuit boards, early circuit boards, and these copper pads don't necessarily adhere too well. For sure, if I was to push hard from the component side, I could lift these traces up pretty easily. So what can you do? Well, remove the solder. Solder sucker or solder wick. I'm going to use solder wick in this particular case. So I think this is one, and this one is kind of straight, so I might be able to get away with it. But I don't particularly like to take chances if I don't have to. And that one actually is bent. It's hard to tell. I'm going to try wiggling a little bit to see if I got the right one, and you know what? I don't think it is. So I'm wiggling the cap, and that lead is not moving at all. So that, and I can also feel the component that's hot, and that I think is a resistor that is nearby. So I think, let's try over here. Maybe not. These wires out of the way a little. Although, this is the edge of the circuit board, so it's got to be around here somewhere. Let's try this. Maybe not. Yeah, I think that's wiggling a little bit, so I'm going to remove solder from here. Again, yeah, solder sucker. Yeah, I know you guys recommend all the time get a professional vacuum desoldering station. I don't do that much work on circuit boards. I mean, maybe one a year. I just don't have the justification for getting one. And most of the circuit boards I do are in Predictas, and those components tend to come out really easily, and especially in those because I remove the circuit boards completely, so it's much easier to get in there. And on those, they don't use caps where both leads come out the same end. They come out one end and the other, so you can actually just clip the capacitor off. Here's one of them for sure. It's up here. You just clip the component off and leave the little stubby leads, and then you heat this pad up and you actually push it through from the top side. You can't do that here because the component is mounted completely flush. The only thing you could do, maybe, is completely crush the component on the other side. Then get down to the individual component, little leads going up into it. That's not so easy to do, so... Alright, that's one of them. So where is the other? It's right up here. Cool. Another way thing you can do sometimes is just grab some of the solder on, draw it off with your iron, and just flick it out of the way. And you might be able to get away with keep wiggling the component as the solder sets up. And nope, not so much that time. Alright, so this bottom one is pretty much solder free. So now I'm going to grab X-Acto knife blade and try to get it under there and bend it up. Alright, I'll use my side cutters. There we go. It's loose, and I'm just going to actually rip it off. So one side of the cap is completely free, which allows me to then just heat up the other side, and that now I don't got to worry about so much because now I've got some freedom to move it around. So there we go. Now I will get a new cap and pop it in. And here is a new cap, a 473, which translates to 0.047 microfarads, which is plenty close enough to 0.05. And And here is the new replacement capacitor, 473, which translates to 0.047 microfarad, rated for 630 volts. Now I did a trial fitting, and these lead spacing is a little bit too wide for the circuit board, so I'm going to take some needle nose pliers and bend them a little bit. Back out. Something like that. And then we put it where the old one was, like so. And then we bend the leads over on this side. Grab a little solder. Now, ideally, this thing would not be vertical, it would be horizontal, because gravity is going to pull solder down a little bit, but if you're quick, you can do a neat job. And I think I actually put this component in an adjacent empty hole to where it was originally, but you know what? It just doesn't matter. In fact, there's another one over here. I've noticed on some of these boards, this thing went through a lot of revisions. I think it's revision 19 or something like that. And I get the impression that they use components that varied in size a bit, so often there are a number of holes on the circuit board around a component, so you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want to use. And if I looked more closely, I might have been able to find some that were available, and I wouldn't have had to bend the component leads at all, but hey, so be it. And something else is I had removed some solder from some other components nearby because I guessed wrong about which leads were actually on that cap, so I need to remember to reattach those. There's one, and then these guys down here, and that is all there is to it. Make sure everything's all nice and shiny and flowing. If you really want to, you could grab a Q-tip and some isopropyl alcohol and clean the flux off. There's a gravity's fighting against me. I'm going to cool off a little bit. There we go. Alright, that is that. Got a few more left to do. And then I want to start checking resistors, because there's that one over here that looks strange. Let me get out of the way. So when I first fired this up, there's the remains of an old one here and a new one tacked in. And that looks a little weird, so I gotta refer to the schematic, trace things out, and see if let's try to figure out exactly what was going on there. Well, I'll find out in the editing room if this little experiment was successful or not. Please let me know what you think in the comments section. That's all for now.